Good evening and welcome back to CNN Money Switzerland. I'm Olivia Chang. Let's take a look at all the top stories today. Switzerland is officially ending the status of extraordinary situation and downgrading that to special situation. This was introduced back in March as the coronavirus crisis grew. Meanwhile, 17 new cases of coronavirus have been recorded according to the latest federal statistics. After nearly 3 months, a Swiss citizen who was held hostage by dissident members of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia has been rescued. He, along with another man from Brazil and their pet dogs, were freed by the Colombian military as of Thursday. The matter is now under investigation, with both men in good health. Bringing you our top story tonight, Basel, Switzerland is now home to Syngenta Group, one of the world's largest agricultural players when it comes to crop protection and seeds. CEO Erik Fyrwald says the planned IPO of the company is still on track for 2022 despite coronavirus. Now, my colleague Hannah Wise recently caught up with him and asked what had really changed with the formation of this new group.
So Erik Fyrwald, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on CNN Money Switzerland. You are the CEO now of Syngenta Group, which is the new designation for Syngenta, the agricultural business of Sinochem and ChemChina, and the Israeli spray company Adama. Tell me, what's actually really changed with this merging of companies?
Well, thank you for having me, Hannah. What's changed as we've gone from Syngenta Company, which is a global crop protection and seeds company, to the Syngenta Group. With these additional companies added to Syngenta, we become a much stronger player in crop protection, seeds, but also get into the business of crop nutrition in China, as well as farmer solution centers in China, a business we call MAP, or Modern Agriculture Platform. Our sales go from $13.5 billion to $23 billion. We go from 28,000 to 48,000 employees, better able to serve farmers to meet their huge challenges all around the world.
It doesn't the concentration, though, of an agricultural, an agrochemical business, though, mean less choice for farmers out there and therefore higher prices?
Absolutely not. It means more innovation. It means bringing more capabilities together to help solve these huge challenges that farmers face. With climate change, for example, we have tremendous weather extremes happening now. Drought, flooding, combination of both, higher winds, greater pest pressures, and we're bringing more innovation together with the Syngenta Group to better help farmers deal with these weather extremes, but also to help mitigate climate change, to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases from agriculture to be part of the solution to climate change.
How much of this announcement, this group situation, this move to a group, is about the IPO?
It has nothing to do with the IPO by itself. It's all about creating a great company that can best help farmers all around the world. And as we do that, it increases our ability to do an IPO. And as you know, we said when we launched Syngenta with ChemChina, that we would IPO within 5 years. That will be the summer of 2022. This further strengthens our ability to make sure that that happens within that time frame.
Do you know anything more? Can you give us any more details on the quantity of shares that will be issued or the amount that is to be raised?
No, that planning is underway, but what we're focused on is creating a great company and performing very well, which we are doing. Despite the coronavirus, despite other challenges, the Syngenta company and now the Syngenta Group is performing very well.
Well, certainly market conditions specify timing of an IPO. You mentioned coronavirus. Do you think this 2022 deadline may be impacted by the coronavirus?
No, I think it's impacted market conditions today for an IPO. But I think by the time that we get through this next year, I think that market conditions will be back to favorable, but we'll see. Our job isn't to worry about that. Our job is to create the greatest company in agriculture innovation and to see when the market conditions are right. And I believe that will be the case by the mid of 2022.
Now, China is a big target market for you. How will this group move help you increase your market share there?
it's tremendous strengthening in China. So we go from having no leadership in China by any company. We were number one in crop protection with 6% market share in China. We had less than 1% share in seeds, and we're a minor player, and so was everybody else. By putting these three companies together, we create the clear leader, and we go from $300 million in sales in China to over $4 billion in sales. So we've got critical mass, we've got leading market share positions, and we've got tremendous innovation, tremendous technology to take to China and to build up in China with very strong leadership in China.
Does this Syngenta Group formulation give China more access to your intellectual property, your seed technology?
Absolutely. We'll bring more technology from all around the world to China, and we'll also develop more technology in China.
And sustainability-wise, obviously there's a lot more concern about where our food comes from, our supply chains, especially following what's happened with coronavirus. Can Syngenta lead this sustainability conversation more now with this group status?
One of the outcomes from the coronavirus was there were shortages of food supplies in a number of places, and today there's the crisis being faced in places like Africa, where we've got to come with solutions. And so there's more awareness, I think, when people see that the food shelves are empty, that there needs to be reliability of the agriculture food system. And we were able to do that with coronavirus. Despite coronavirus, we were able to work with governments, be declared an essential industry, and find ways to keep the value chains, the supply chains working.
Solar machinery maker MEYER is pivoting in an attempt to revive its business. The Swiss company wants to produce solar cells and modules through a planned capital increase of 165 million Swiss francs. MEYER said in a statement today, quote, "The company has not been able to generate profits from its technological leadership in recent years." On top of that, the coronavirus pandemic also led orders to fall by nearly 46%. In the meantime, the company has reduced the staff count to 730 in the first quarter of 2020. Venice, a city that so many people visit every single year, except during a pandemic. There are businesses that are struggling, as you can imagine, but some residents are now seeing an opportunity to save their city before it's too late. CNN's Ben Wiedemann takes a closer look.
The tourists, a few of them, are back in Venice's Piazza San Marco. Many of the hotels and shops are still shuttered, the gondolieri idle. The cafes host more seagulls than clients. We find it fabulous, says Marie-Caroline Croset from France. There are no waits at the museums. The churches are all open. You can take your time. But the economy of Venice, highly dependent upon tourism, can't wait. Around 30 million visitors flocked to the city last year. Venice before coronavirus teemed with tourists, and this is now. This shop has been in Mario's family for generations. It couldn't be worse than this, he says. We reopened May 23rd, and since then we've made around €100. That's just over $110 in almost a month. Residents have become accustomed to life without the madding crowds. The prospect of an eventual return to a semblance of normalcy is bittersweet. Veteran tour guide Caterina Sopradassi misses the tourists, but savored the silver lining.
It's really sad. In a certain way, it's also really marvelous because we can enjoy our city. And we hope we are restarting little by little, step by step.
Visitors to the sites must have their temperatures checked, wear masks inside, and maintain social distance. With the rebirth of tourism, many residents hope the city won't be destroyed in the process.
In tourism,
environmental scientist Jane Damosto warns that Venice, already threatened by rising waters, can ill afford a renewed flood of tourists.
It's not just a question of the impact of 30 million people on a very fragile set of islands in the middle of a delicate lagoon system, it's also a question of should all those people be traveling across the world, across the country for such short holidays, which is...
The government of Venice is considering a city tax to try to hold back the deluge of spendthrift day trippers. Lorenza Lain manages a hotel in a 500-year-old palazzo.
We must be very respectful, I think, of all the guests coming into Venice, but also people that come to Venice should be educated to respect the city.
A city navigating between the need to make a living and preserving a unique way of life. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Venice.
Socializing hasn't really been high on our agenda during the coronavirus crisis, but we all know how it can feel after a long night out. So what if you could reduce some of the after effects of drinking too much alcohol? Tanner Koenig finds out more with Swiss startup KAEX.
KAEX consists of 25 natural ingredients. Those are biomolecules that have shown some scientific significance in the body, that are used up times that the body is going under stress. And as we all know, alcohol consumption is quite stressful to the body, using up a lot of those biomolecules. And that's how actually KAEX was developed.
Critics could also still say that you're animating people to drink more alcohol because they're like, okay, I can minimize a bit of the side effects.
Yes, this is a moral issue that we are confronted quite often with. And to be honest, I can understand the logic thought process of that argument. But if you look into actual science, you will see that's actually the other way around, that science show that alcoholisms per se, actually people who perceive hangovers more strongly, they also have a higher tendency to develop an alcohol addiction. And the reason there is obviously that people, most often with some kind of psychological precondition, most often depression, they come home after work and try to self-medicate by using alcohol. The next day they get up, and additional to the depression they are already perceiving, they also get the hangover. And the number one cure for a hangover and the depression by that individual is most often alcohol again. So then you obviously fall into this vicious circle that gets really difficult to get out of it. And people who perceive stronger hangovers, they obviously are more affected by this vicious circle. Hence, having a product as KAEX, actually, if you would argument by science, actually means the other thing, that it's also one of the tools, next obviously very other important tools such as psychotherapy and such, to really break this vicious circle.
So you also just started a new financing round and will expand to Germany this year. So seems that it's going quite well. Has COVID-19 not slowed down your business?
Yes, it did extremely so. Again, as discussed in the very beginning, there are three pillars: moderate alcohol consumption, people going to work early in the mornings and doing sports. And obviously all of those three pillars have been knocked down by the whole lockdown situation. Hence, we also perceive that very strongly in our day-to-day businesses. Thanks to our business structure that it's very asset light, thanks to the business structure that we had built up in the previous years in lean management and so on and so forth, we really could react on that very strong implications on our business quite well. That is now being judged by interested investors very positively, obviously. So even though, I mean, there was a huge black swan, in our case, we managed to go out of it actually more or less unharmed. And with the new positioning, KAEX in sports and so on, actually almost even stronger. So during these months from March up until the end of May, it has been quite difficult. But now that the whole world, especially in Switzerland, most conversations and discussions seems to be normalizing. We are picking up on the discussions we had before. Actually, we were able to take up this opportunity quite well, and hence are progressing quite well in our discussions.
So when are you available in Germany?
So the goal there is to launch on the 1st of October. As you might know, and had been also published by other media, is that one of our investors is ProSiebenSat.1, the media house. So we already have quite a substantial marketing budget there. They are supporting us with the listings at mainstream sales channels, being the drugstore chains, being the supermarket chains, Edeka, Rewe, and so on and so forth. So this step-by-step approach that we had to first live through in Switzerland and turned out to be quite successfully is going to be different in Germany. We're going to start already on a very high impact, high awareness level.
To wind up the week, we take a look inside the world of archery. The crisis has spawned a new kind of remote competition, one that involves a lot more action going on our mobile phones. Our correspondent Matt Lain has more on that with World Archery.
Tom, how have the last few months been for the World Archery?
Well, it's been an interesting period. It's something we've never seen before. So the big thing is that you have to adapt day to day on how life was going.
Archery is great because it's a team sport, but also an individual sport. So some clever person in your organization has come up with a novel concept that you're putting forward for the viewers at the moment.
Yeah, so being able to put something in place where people can compete in a nearly live situation. It is live, but with I would say an interaction between the players, even if they're not in the same place on this planet.
So has everyone bought into it? I was watching some images, and the commentators are talking to the athletes a few seconds before, a few seconds after, trying to get the temperature. Did you tell people to buy into it, or were they quite enthusiastic?
They were quite enthusiastic. I would say our athletes have really been desperate to compete, and they really, I would say, what's been the best thing out of it is the enthusiasm of the athletes, and even the ones that didn't win, their enthusiasm was there.
So you haven't just been doing this for the fun. Clearly, as a federation, you need to have income to support all the good works you're doing. How has this moved out? How has this planned out?
Well, it has allowed us to continue certain of the series we have with some of our partners, to continue what we were already doing when we had live events. I wouldn't say it's giving exactly the same return as a normal event, but at least it keeps the audience going, and we have an interaction with our fans, and we can show some of our sponsors.
How have you physically put this operation together?
Well, basically, the athletes are using their own phones and tablets, and then we remotely producing it from our TV studio, which is based in Scotland, with our partner that we're using at our normal events. And so it's a full remote connection production. We have our commentator is in another part of the UK, and then we have our head of communication doing also technical commentary from Switzerland. So we always had 4 connections and then remotely controlled.
So from a financial perspective, is this the way forward then? Because it sounds like you don't have to have intense teams actually going all over the world, which normally I guess you do for the production.
It's for sure giving us lessons of how we can optimize certain things for the future. We already had done some experimenting with remote commenting, but this is going a step further. So we think there is definitely something to learn for the future. Now it's clear it's not the quality of production that you normally would expect for television, but we could learn definitely from this and use it in the future.
That's all for us. In the meantime, you can stay on top of any of our coverage simply by heading over to cnnmoney.ch. In the meantime, take care, and we will see you very shortly. Good evening.